In a luxurious restaurant in the heart of the city, a powerful millionaire named Richard Thompson was having lunch with his son, Oliver, who was confined to a wheelchair. The atmosphere was thick with opulence, and the clinking of silverware echoed around them. Richard, a man whose name sent shivers down the spines of business moguls and judges alike, was known for his ruthless demeanor and unyielding ambition. He sat there, dressed in a tailored dark suit, his expression as cold as the marble floors beneath him. Oliver, just 10 years old, sat quietly beside his father, his legs motionless on the footrest of his wheelchair. 5 years had passed since a tragic car accident had robbed him of the ability to walk. Despite the best efforts of renowned doctors, his condition remained unchanged. Richard, impatient and irritated, tapped his fingers on the table, glancing at his watch repeatedly. The food was taking too long, and he had no patience for delays. Suddenly, a small figure appeared at the entrance of the restaurant, drawing the attention of the patrons. It was a girl no older than 8, dressed in ragged clothes, with 2 braids framing her face and large, dark eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the world. She walked confidently between the tables, ignoring the shocked gazes of the diners. "Where did that girl come from?" whispered a woman, clutching her handbag tightly. "Someone should call security," murmured a man to his wife, as the waiter hesitated, unsure whether to intervene or let her pass. The girl approached Richard and Oliver's table, stopping in front of them. She looked at both of them with an intensity that made Oliver's heart race. "Give me something to eat, and I will heal your son," she said, her voice steady and clear. The restaurant fell silent, the kind of silence that felt almost supernatural, as if the very air had thickened with anticipation. Richard, taken aback, scoffed at her words. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to, little girl? Heal my son? With what? Your dirty hands." His voice rose, filled with contempt. Oliver tugged at his father's arm, urging him to listen. "Dad, just hear her out," he pleaded softly. But Richard, fueled by anger and disbelief, dismissed the girl with a wave of his hand. "Get this charlatan out of here before I do it myself," he shouted, causing the waiter to freeze in place. The girl remained calm, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not lying," she said, looking directly at Oliver. "Can I show you a little proof?" Before Richard could stop her, she knelt down in front of Oliver and placed her hand gently on his legs. It was not a clinical touch, nor a religious one. It was simple and pure, a gesture of belief in what she was doing. Oliver felt a slight tremor, a warmth spreading through him, but nothing miraculous happened. The girl withdrew her hand and stood back. "Sometimes it takes a few minutes," she said. Richard exploded with rage. "Is that your big trick? You touch his legs and expect us to believe it? My son is paralyzed, do you understand? He won't walk just because you laid your hands on him." The restaurant was in shock, the brutality of his words hanging in the air. The girl lowered her head and turned to leave, her calm demeanor unshaken. As she walked away, Richard slumped back in his chair, fists clenched. Oliver's eyes followed the girl, a flicker of hope igniting within him. The waiter finally placed their meals on the table, but Richard barely noticed. The atmosphere had shifted. The silence was now heavy with something unnameable. "Papa," Oliver murmured, breaking the stillness. "My legs feel warm." Richard turned slowly, skepticism etched on his face. "What do you mean, warm?" Oliver touched his knees, his voice trembling with excitement. "I can feel something, really." The words tumbled out, raw and desperate. As if they had been buried for years, Richard's heart raced. He had dismissed the girl too quickly. "Stay here," he said, standing abruptly and knocking over his chair in his haste. He rushed out of the restaurant, calling for the girl. "Girl, where are you?" He ran through the streets, searching frantically, nearly getting hit by a taxi as he crossed the road without looking. "Please come back," he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. We returned to the restaurant. The table was empty, the plates cold. Oliver sat staring out the window, tears in his eyes. "She left, didn't she?" he asked quietly. Richard sat down heavily, defeated. "Yes, son. I didn't see her for who she was." The weight of his failure settled over them like a shroud. In the days that followed, Richard became a man consumed by guilt. He scoured the city, hiring private investigators, reviewing security footage, and searching shelters and hospitals. He was a man on the brink, desperate to find the girl who had given his son a glimmer of hope. Meanwhile, Oliver felt the absence of the girl acutely. For a brief moment, he had felt something stir within him, but had faded away, leaving him despondent. Then, one cold morning, Richard received a call. "Mr. Thompson, we found a girl matching your description. She's in a shelter in the north side of town." Without hesitation, Richard jumped into his car, his heart pounding. The shelter was modest, with peeling walls and a worn staircase. He was met with suspicion as he entered, but he pressed on, showing them the details of the girl he sought. When he finally reached the room where she was sleeping, he froze. There she was, the same girl who confronted him, but beside her sat a woman with a weary expression. Richard's heart sank as recognition washed over him. "Angie," he whispered, recalling the woman he had dismissed years ago when she had become pregnant. "What are you doing here?" Angie looked up, her face hardening. "You took everything from me, Richard. This is your daughter." The words hit him like a punch. He staggered back, memories flooding his mind. He had fired Angie when she needed support the most, and now he was face to face with the consequences of his actions. "I didn't know," he stammered. "I didn't know she was your daughter." Angie's eyes were filled with pain. "Of course you didn't. You never cared to find out." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken truths. "She touched my son and he felt something," Richard said, desperation creeping into his voice. "I need to understand." Angie's expression softened slightly, but she remained guarded. "The question isn't whether you want to understand. It's whether you're willing to listen now." Richard nodded, his heart racing. Angie took a deep breath. "After you fired me, my life became a struggle. I couldn't find work, and I ended up in a shelter. I gave birth alone, with no one to help me. I had to raise Iris on the streets, and she grew up in a world of hardship." Richard's heart ached as he listened to her story, realizing the depth of his mistakes. "Iris has a gift," Angie continued. "She can sense when people are hurting. One day, she approached a man who was about to take his own life and told him he was still good inside. She saved him." Richard's eyes widened as he realized the impact of his daughter's abilities. "She came to the restaurant that day because she knew she had to help," Angie explained. "But you dismissed her. You didn't see her for who she truly is." Richard felt a wave of shame wash over him. "I was wrong. I see that now." Angie looked at him, her expression softening. "If you want to make amends, you need to do more than just apologize. You need to change." Richard nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I want to help you both. I want to make things right." As they spoke, Iris stirred awake, her eyes bright and aware. She looked at Richard and smiled. "You can help us, but you need to change the way you see the world." Richard felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. "I will," he promised. In the days that followed, Richard began to transform his life. He reached out to those he had wronged in his company, offering them second chances. He donated to shelters and organizations that supported single mothers and children in need. He worked alongside Iris and Angie, learning from them and understanding the importance of compassion. Richard's journey was not easy, but he was determined to make a difference. He created programs to help those in need, ensuring that no one would have to suffer as Angie had. He became a man of action, using his resources to uplift others. One day, as they stood together in front of a newly built community center, Richard looked at Iris and Angie, gratitude filling his heart. "Thank you for showing me the way," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Iris smiled, her eyes shining with warmth. "You found your purpose, just like I knew you would." And in that moment, Richard understood that true wealth was not measured in money, but in the lives he could touch and the love he could share. Together, they had built a new beginning, one filled with hope, healing, and the promise of a brighter future.